All right, I want to bring in Josh Rogin, Washington Post columnist and CNN political analyst. Josh, what did you think about what the former president said?
Well, Brianna, to be clear, the blame for what's going on in Ukraine lies on Putin squarely and Russia, not on any U.S. administration. At the same time, if we don't understand the mistakes of history, then we're doomed to repeat them, and we have to be honest about how we got into this situation. And part of that were bad mistakes made by administrations on both sides, including the Obama administration. I mean, let's remember that in 2008, Putin invaded Georgia, and in 2009, the first thing the Obama administration did was order a reset with Russia. And in 2014, when Putin annexed Crimea and invaded Ukraine, what the Obama administration did is they worked to pressure Ukraine into making a deal that ceded Crimea and didn't remove Russia from eastern Ukraine. Now, at the time, those decisions seem rational, but the lessons that Putin learned was that if he pursues aggression, that eventually the United States will back down and let him get something for his aggression. And that doesn't excuse the mistakes that the Trump administration made. It doesn't excuse the mistakes that the George W. Bush administration made. But what we see here is President Obama, intentionally deflecting and ignoring his own role in how we got into this mess that we're in.
Yeah, why might one think that Vladimir Putin would invade Ukraine in 2022? Because he did it once before. I mean, they took over and annexed Crimea, which was part of Ukraine. There is a history here, a direct history here. And clearly, as you say, President Obama didn't dodge that. Every administration dating back 20 years has perhaps misjudged Vladimir Putin along the way and had a hand in creating an atmosphere where Putin might have thought he could get away with this. Has Putin changed? I was speaking to Fareed Zakaria overnight, Josh, and Fareed's view is that Putin, this is a different Vladimir Putin now, albeit maybe with some of the same motivations he's always had. But something has changed with him the last few years, whether it be COVID and the isolation or all the money he's awash in with oil revenue. What do you think?
I think I actually disagree with Fareed. I think Putin is the same Putin he's always been. I think he came to power with violence. He consolidated power with horrendous aggression, and he always has increased that aggression wherever he's able to, wherever the world allows him to. So sure, is he getting more reckless and more dangerous as he gets older and closer to his retirement? Sure. But this is not just how Putin has always been. This is how all psychopathic totalitarian dictators are. Their appetite grows with the eating. That should be the lesson here, that appeasement doesn't work, that you can't make semi-okay deals with psychopaths, and that in the end, when you recognize a leader who's willing to commit mass atrocities, you have to realize that's never going to change. So I think Putin is being his best self, or his worst self, let's say. But he hasn't changed his stripes. He was always a psychopathic dictator. We just failed to recognize it. And by we, I mean the Bush administration, the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and a lot of us. But now there can be no doubt. And what happened in Ukraine was not unpredictable. In fact, it was predictable and predicted, especially by the Ukrainians for the last 8 years. So we can't sit here and say, oh, well, we didn't know. Maybe Putin just became crazy last year. That's not true. Okay, we have to be honest, because we have to understand who these guys are, because he's not the only one. And we can't act surprised every time another psychopathic totalitarian dictator pursues his aggression. And we can already see who that might be next. And if I were Taiwan, I would be looking hard at that history and making sure not to repeat it.
Josh Rogin, thank you so much, joining us from Washington.